Muy buenos días a todos y a todas.
Good
Mi nombre
morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Francisco Winter, and I work at the World Bank office in Chile. I also have the honor of being the regional coordinator for the Youth Summit for the second event for Latin American and Caribbean youth. I wanted to comment that we have simultaneous translation into English, Portuguese, and French available. We are also streaming via our YouTube channels. It is a pleasure to welcome you to this youth dialogue, seeking to listen to their concerns and desires, and also get to know their experiences and proposals for a resilient recovery for people and the planet. We welcome all the attendees from our region and all different places of from wherever they are watching us from. We'd like to thank the Youth Summit team for their support and also for the regards to Carlos Felipe Jaramillo, Vice President of the World Bank for Latin America and the Caribbean. O'Neill Martinez Mazamba, Manager of the Youth Summit from the World Bank Group. Jessica Belmont, Communicator of the institution, who's going to be leading the dialogue panel. And also all the young leaders accompanying us, which will also have a panel in this dialogue. So I'd like to give the floor to a virtual opening remarks from Felipe Jaramillo, Vice President, who is going to be sharing his speech. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank you for joining us in this event, where we want to hear the voices of all the young people who are leading concrete actions towards the recovery of Latin America and the Caribbean. And this is an opportunity so we can get to know their experiences and their aspirations about the realities of their countries, and also the main challenges they face in order to build a more resilient, fair, and sustainable region. And here at the World Bank, we believe today more than ever, it is important to open up these instances for a dialogue with our youth. In our region, there are more than 150 million young people between 15 and 29 years of age who were profoundly affected by the consequences of the pandemic, and especially due to the lockdown and schools and universities being shut down, along with opportunities to socialize with their peers. At the same time, we have also known the different initiatives, many of them creative, innovative as well, led by youth in order to move forward. And also to listen to and learn from the voices of our youth. I think it's not only necessary, but also urgent. And here at the World Bank, we have a firm commitment towards the development of our youth. But in order to make it to the development of a region is fair and sustainable, we have to know about the issues and also the solutions presented by our youth. We are at a critical point in time where we need to look towards the future and take all learned lessons in the last 2 difficult years. And you, our young people, are key to rethink our present and our future. In the region, we all know that the young people face inequalities in education and also the development of work skills. They require and demand a more inclusive education, work training for jobs of the future, and also the incorporation of gender perspectives along with climate smart and friendly economies. We have seen the behavior of our youth towards the climate action in Latin America in order to change our consumption habits, to protect our biodiversity, and also to implement any measures which also favor our poorest population. I believe these issues demand urgent solutions, and it is essential for you to pick up this leadership. The inclusion of your perspective is fundamental for us. So government policies can be made sustainable, and governments are developing policies in order to address these challenges and have to incorporate the vision of our youth. From the World Bank, once again, I'd like to reiterate our commitment to create instances of dialogue and participation for youth, as we are sure that you are critical actors in order to rebuild a better present and future in our region. And finally, I'd like to say that I hope this meeting which we are all here for, is just one out of many instances which we have for exchanging experiences, views, and best practices. I'd like to encourage you to make the most out of this panel, this opportunity for exchanging ideas, and to continue taking actions that favor the sustainable development of our dear region. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank our Vice President for his remarks. And now, O'Neill, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. As the manager of the World Bank Group Youth Summit 2022, I am honored to join you for the 2022 World Bank Group Youth Summit Latin America and Caribbean regional event. The Youth Summit is an annual event hosted by the World Bank Group to engage with youth globally on the most pressing topics facing their generation. And to reinforce the dialogue between experts and youth, we introduced last year the World Bank Group Youth Summit regional event. The regional event is a core component of the Youth Summit that invites youth to discuss with experts on pressing issues in their region that relates to the summit theme. This year, Youth Summit themed Unlocking the Power of Inclusion for Equitable Growth invites us to explore inclusion under three buckets: social inclusion, economic inclusion, and environmental inclusion, and to determine the role of inclusion in building back better. Indeed, the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated the inequalities for the underrepresented groups, including women and youth, with about 97 million more people living on less than $1.90 a day. And to tackle these challenges, the World Bank Group has introduced during the IMF World Bank Group 2021 annual spring meeting an innovative approach of development called the Green, Resilient, Inclusive Development Framework, or more commonly, the GREET framework. The goal of the GREET framework is to promote the connection between people, economy, and the planet, and enhance an economic growth that goes hand in hand with environmental goals and inclusion, thus putting inclusion at the heart of an equitable growth. So when talking about inclusion as the driver of an equitable growth, we want to explore solutions that improve the terms on which individuals and groups can take part in society. That's how the World Bank Group defines social inclusion. And when exploring the power of inclusion for an equitable growth, we also want to look into solutions that participate in building green and resilient communities, ensuring no communities are left behind, to tackle environmental degradation and climate change. And that is what we qualify as environmental inclusion. Finally, we want to ensure that each person, regardless of their social or economic background or the community they represent, have an equitable access to economic opportunities. And that is what we qualify as economic inclusion. But because the Youth Summit is an event organized by the youth for the youth, we also want to look into the role the youth can play in building back better and achieving the sustainable development goals, and explore how the youth can be empowered to be actors of change. Indeed, according to the Interparliamentary Union report on youth participation in national parliaments, at least 50% of the world's population is under 30, yet only 2.6% of the parliamentarians are under 30. This statistic clearly shows that the youth is underrepresented in the decision-making process within their local communities and globally, and it is key to develop solutions to increase their engagement and get their voices heard. So this year, Latin America and Caribbean regional event titled "The Future is Now, Time for Youth Action" encourages youth to take action now and unleash their power as change makers by exploring the role of the youth in driving a resilient and inclusive recovery. And as you listen to the inspiring words of our panelists, we invite you to take some time to reflect on the stories and experience they shared and take them as lessons to learn and help you grow as young change makers. We also want to make sure that your voices are heard, so be as active as possible during this session, and let's continue the conversation. Indeed, we want to make sure that the World Bank Group Youth Summit fosters conversation beyond the regional event, and that's why we invite you also to attend the Global Youth Summit that is happening today and tomorrow, online and in person in Washington, D.C., and to stay tuned for the upcoming activities. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a wonderful regional event.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Felipe and Anil, for your words. What Felipe commented is really important about the importance of a youth for the World Bank. And to be able to listen to the voice of our youth, according to what they are going through today and leading these visions of change for Latin America and the Caribbean, and as they have a greater clarity for sharing their solutions and what they do in their territories. We're also taking note of what O'Neill said about youth empowerment by means of ideas and the connections provided by Youth Summit, the importance of inclusion, the environment and climate change, and also the invitation extended to us to participate in the Global Youth Summit during these days. We also invite all of you to actively participate and write your comments in the chat. We are already looking at the chat, so we can pick up your questions and also your opinions, which are going to be really relevant for the Youth Summit of the World Bank. We'd also like to invite you to comment on Twitter using the future is now hashtag. And now I'd like to give the floor to Jessica Melmont, World Bank communicator, who is going to act as the moderator for the Dialogue Youth Panel representing our region. Jessica Belmont is a communicator with an approach on digital and audiovisual production. She's from Mexico and has more than 15 years of experience, out of which the last 10 years have been developed in international organisms. Jessica, welcome. And please go ahead. Thank you so much, Francisco. Thank you so much for this introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with you and also everybody else that is joining us via Zoom and also YouTube and social media. I'd like to remind you about this event hashtag, which is hashtag right the future is now, so you can follow the conversation and participate because we want to hear you. And in this panel we are going to be speaking about the call to action from youth to generate changes that favor or that have a positive impact towards sustainable development in their countries and of course well, with their work that have an impact on the Latin American and Caribbean regions. And well, for that we have a group of talented youth. You are going to be hearing their stories and what they are doing because they are going to be telling us today, they are going to be saying how and what they are doing in their territories to build a better country and to build a better Latin America. And well, I'd like to introduce them. We are going to start from Chile. We are joined by Julieta Martínez. She's 18 years old, is an activist on climate change and gender, and is also the founder of the Tremendas Collective Tremendos. This is an organization where it is support the empowerment of young girls to generate actions that have a social impact. From Sao Paulo, we have a Bruno Correia. Bruno Correira is a 23-year-old entrepreneur who is focusing on education, preparing students that have to present, for example, their university admission test. And let me pause because I like to tell you that Bruno is 23 years old, but he started this project when he was 17 years old. So, well, very nice, Bruno. Now, we are going to Jamaica, where we have Gabriela Morris. Gabriela Morris is 25 years old. She is a senator, and she's the main spokesperson regarding sports and youth issues. And let me tell you that Gabriela is the youngest senator in all the history of Jamaica, and she was sworn in the position when she was 23 years old. She's going to be sharing her experience as well. From the Dominican Republic, we have Claudia Taboeda. Claudia Taboeda is the Director of Science, Technology, and the Environment of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in her country. And Claudia is 32 years old, but she started this position when she was 29. And in her country, she's also the first young woman, the youngest woman being appointed to this position. And finally, we have Carolina Fernandez from Paraguay. Carolina is the Director of Management and Implementation of Programs and Projects in the Tierra Nuestra Association, Our Land. Carolina is mainly focused on sustainable development issues, communities focused on the childhood and youth, and she's doing this by pushing this forward through music. Thank you so much to the great panelists that are joining us today. It's a pleasure to meet you and welcome. Remember the hashtag is El futuro es ahora, the future is now. And okay, it's key to know what you are doing in your countries. And Carolina, I'd like to start with you. If you can tell us, well, what are you doing, right? What have you done so far? And also taking an important take into account, right, the issue of this year, which is inclusion for fair and equal growth. Carolina. Hi, greetings to all of you, everybody that's following us through all the different options. Hi from Paraguay. And from the Tierra Nuestra Association, we we have been working on a program called the Sonidos de la Tierra, Sounds of the Earth, which is a program about integration and the community mobilization, which is seeking to generate instances that are inclusive for boys, girls, adolescents, and young people that become closer to a personal development space through music for generating ideas and proposals for working towards the greater good in communities, and also an instance for developing leadership skills precisely for youth. With this program, we have been working for 20 years in creating a living network of interconnected communities, 60 community schools of music in the entire country, which have gone through this program. 20,000 boys, girls, children, and adolescents, which through these music classes, music groups, orchestras, and different artistic and musical expressions, they are moving forward with actions, especially for caring for the environment, especially regarding water, which is one of our main topics. And also we are seeking for this transformation and changes that start from the individual level and people who become aware, and that this community can also mobilize whatever is necessary. This is an integration program. No matter it's the ethnic, religious, economic, political, social, or background, this is an open space, so young people can participate. So we are really, really proud of this process we have been undertaking in these last 20 years, and also how these inclusive spaces for integration really generate an impact in their communities. On the other hand, I'd also like to share the fact that I'm part of a dialogue platform. Oh, in Paraguay now, this is a dialogue platform, which has been created in 2020. And which calls upon young, talented people from different sectors, political parties, business people, civil society organizations, public, state institutions, academia, and also there are different sectors to sit down and talk. And we sit down in an extremely challenged context, such as the pandemic, where we were all impacted. And it really made us think about the issues that most likely were invisible for the young people before. And those who came before us have also emphasized this dialogue platform, which is seeking to generate instances so we can hear the voices of all the different sectors. As a young people, we are leading our sectors, but it's extremely important and challenging to be able to hear other sectors, be able to include them in our ideas, integrating their ideas. We are not always going to be agreeing, right? Dialogue is not always about being in agreement, but to seek a common view. And this is what we are doing from this platform as well. Excelente, Carolina. Thank you so much. And you mentioned something really important, right? Which was the COVID-19 pandemic, which of course impacted all of us. Now we are going to continue with Julieta. And before moving on, once again, we'd like to thank all the attendees. We can see that we have people from India, Venezuela, Lesotho as well. Thank you so much, Julieta. The floor is all yours now. If you can tell us a bit about your work, please go ahead. But of course, and thank you so much for this wonderful introduction, Jessica. I'd like to thank the World Bank team and also the panelists that are joining me today. I also took the liberty of researching, getting to know your work, and I really admire you for that. And Jessica already said that. I'm Julieta Martínez. I'm 18 years old. I'm from Santiago, Chile, and I founded a global action platform called Tremendas. This is a platform which I started when I was 14 years old, and it had and has the aim to visualize, connect, and empower something this is a gender-focused platform seeking for meaningful, purposeful talent, how we connect your work, what motivates you in the world of science, mathematics, technology, robotics, astronomy, arts, culture, and all the different areas of actions in order to finally generate a positive impact in your community, in your country, and of course, the world. And this is a platform which is currently present in countries throughout Latin America and the Caribbean, We are also seeking to be able to expand so we can continue working with boys, girls, and adolescents, and always focusing on something which I really like to call this golden concept, if you will, which most likely many people here are familiar with, which is about this intersectionality. What do I mean? This is overlap of inequalities, understanding, for example, when we talk about a humanitarian crisis, we are talking about this climate crisis, we are talking about a health crisis, and we are also talking about the problems which have a direct impact on young people. In this platform, we have two academias, and we are seeking to have more in the future. On one hand, we have a Climaticas Climatic, which is an academy that called upon 600 girls from Latin America and the Caribbean to provide them access to environmental education with a gender perspective. And why? Because the climate crisis is not a coincidence. 70% of the population are women, or 80% of climate refugees are children and girls, and that girls are 14 times more vulnerable of to dying in a climate disaster. When you deepen a crisis, a problem, which is now having a negative impact, you realize that there are a series of patterns of or systemic degradation which affect a part of the population. But not, this is not a problem, but also part of the solution. How do we give all of them? And also to connect this to the topic of this panel, the importance of inclusion, how to speak about the youth who have tools that have these mechanisms of action and not that can not only react to these problems, but also overcome them and generate positive impacts on their environmental community. And this finally led us to work on the Atomicas Academy that provided access to biological sciences, robotics, and astronomy to 1,000 girls in Chile and the Latin America and the Caribbean, and also to represent. Okay, so we are also seeking for instances and tools to make their communities and themselves thrive and be able to demonstrate. And I will wrapping up with this: an educated woman can not only improve her life but also change the world and for the
Pues muy bonita frase de cierre y además
Thank you, Julieta. A lovely phrase to close, and it's good the data that you share with us. We now will go with Bruno. Bruno, let me tell you so that you come in with even more emotion. We have people from Morocco, from Nigeria, the Dominican Republic, Chile. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Bruno. Thank you. I will speak in Portuguese.
For English speakers, thank you, Jessica, and your team for this for welcoming me. It was a very good surprise being able to participate in this event and tell a little bit my work, not only what they're doing in Brazil related to the processes, but also in our country. So Brazil is different from many countries. It's not a country that you access higher education in a very simple way. We have, our access is very complex. Universities, the more prestigious universities, it's harder to get in there. Most students who access public universities studied in private schools, not public schools, because these people needed a lot of money to get ready to go to a university like this. People who really need to go to university, we need to offer the possibility for them to the tools for them to do this test. So since 2016, I have a project. One of my teachers from high school in 2014 helped me develop that. And we taught on Saturdays. It's one of the many projects. It's tiny courses that we do. We call pré-vestibular courses. So I've already identified that there are some representatives from the African communities with other projects which also do that. So thank you for your presence, because this is a job that we do little by little in many steps, so that we are able to transform youth realities and help them have an easier access to higher education. So we will be able to include more people in the places that we need. These places, people go through a lot of difficulties, and we need people who go through those difficulties as well and live real life, so that they can be protagonists. So we need these people as bank directors, school principals, as reporters, lawyers, judges, so that these people will have a good knowledge and vision of the world than these other people who are in more distinguished places, so that they know exactly what people go through throughout the country. So we are very happy to offer these young students. It's not an obligation. They have a right, and they can do it at any moment. So in the same way that the person has a right to study, they have a right to have access to this. And we hope that we can transform people's lives. It's a challenge to us all. Again, I'm one representative of a very large group here in Brazil, and I hope that I can represent and count on their support as well, so we can show the world what we have been doing here and our will to change this reality, especially because after pandemic.
Muchas gracias, Bruno. Y como dices, ¿no? La educación transforma vidas. Y bueno, hablas de pequeños pasos, pero pequeños pasos de gran impacto.
Thank you very much. You talk of baby steps that transform lives, but creates great impact. Now we continue with Claudia. Claudia, if you could please share of the actions that you've done during your career. Please, you're recognized, Claudia. Hi, everyone. For me, it is a pleasure and honor to be here, specifically being one of the least youngest people on the panel. This means we continue to reach youth, and we've advanced. Specifically myself, that's begun like many of you and whom participate and are connected today. I started quite young, representing my country in different forums. I began also having this curiosity and need of a positive impact in subjects that were challenging for us. It makes me very happy to see spaces that continue to open up, because at least when I was young and did this work did not exist. And I know that we are listening to the voices of youth, which is a challenge that we've had for many years in the different spaces and different subjects, from economic issues, climate change, and gender equality. All because, once again, youths have been the agents of change. For me, on one hand, I have the luck, honor, and opportunity of assuming as director everything that has to do with economic diplomacy and technology, scientific technology in my country. For me, as a youth, it is not only a great honor, but a great opportunity and responsibility. But it is the proposal of the Dominican Republic government for youth to truly have and lead processes in decision making. And it is something that truly we look to ask other countries to look at the example where youths can be trusted for in decision making, and we can trust in youths to make and become part of decision making. But not only this, but also, since I've always said I carry several hats, and in Santo Domingo for 10 years, I've brought about this project of extraction and R&D, where we are able to bring youths with sustainable development goals to develop themselves and bring them skills and goals to bring forth their own projects led by youth, for youth, with youth. And basically to achieve that in different areas and spheres of problems identified nationally, they can themselves bring their projects to look for solutions to these issues and problems all. Excellent, Claudia. Thank you very much. And I repeat that phrase you said, like youths as agents of change. Now we go with Gabriela. Gabriela, welcome. If you could please tell us a bit of what you are working on in your country. Please, Gabriela, if you may.
Gabi, can you hear us?
Gabi?
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay, yes. Okay, please.
Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me here this morning. Let me extend greetings to those who are joining us from across the world. It's really a privilege to not just share space and to be a part of this panel with such dynamic young people, but to also hear from them and learn from them. So it's really a great opportunity to be here. In my country, I serve as the youngest parliamentarian, and so I'm the youngest senator in Jamaica. I was appointed at age 23. I'm now 25, so it's been, a year and a half in the post. And it's been an amazing opportunity having the chance to represent the interest of young people in the upper house, having a chance to really advocate for issues that affect young people the most, and having a chance to really solidify this idea that young people, and I think Claudia mentioned it perfectly, that young people need to have a seat at the table. They need to have a seat in the decision-making rooms. And so it's an opportunity, and a wonderful opportunity, to continue to push this idea of youth involvement in the political process. And I'm happy to lead that effort here in Jamaica. One of the things that I'm very, very, very passionate about is youth involvement in the political process, not just through voting, but getting young people in Jamaica to have a mind of advocacy, helping them to understand the channels through which they can advocate for the issues that affect them. I'm really passionate about that. And I'm pleased to say that here in Jamaica, just last week, our political ombudsman and I was able to participate in that effort. We're able to launch our Civic education handbook. And so we're trying to get young people to be more aware of their rights and their responsibilities as citizens. And so that's something that I'm committed and excited to continue to work on. Another thing that I'm very passionate about doing here in Jamaica is advocating for the rights of women and girls and engaging women and girls. Here in Jamaica, I continue to pioneer a program called Girls Past the Age of Consent, where we're able to encourage young women in their development process. We're able to impart on them goals and values and help to point them towards resources that can help them to be better. So that's something that I'm excited about. And the final thing that I want to share with you is my involvement in creating opportunities for young people. Here in Jamaica, there is an opportunity, I would say, and that's something that we have to continue to fight and to push for. And perhaps the World Bank can play a very pivotal role in helping us to do so. In Jamaica, educational opportunities continue to be a problem for young people. Just access to it alone is a challenge for many. And so as a young senator, as a young legislator, I continue to push for the creation of opportunities. And one of the organizations that I'm proud to work through is called Campus Elite here in Jamaica, where we provide working and other development of opportunities for young people. So those are just a few things that I'm doing right now to further include and engage our young people, because they need so much more of that to feel a part of the process and to overall contribute to the development here in Jamaica.
Muchas gracias, Gabriela, por esto que nos
Thank you very much, Gabriela, for what you share. It's of great importance, these wonderful projects that you've done in Jamaica. And I wanted to ask if you have a story or a success case that you can share with us of the work that you've done. I know it's work of several people, but you've led from before and now as senator. Do you have a quick story that you could share with us?
I would just say that it's really, really heartwarming to see, especially with the programs that I do with women, just to see their transformation, how their confidence grows, how they're able to participate even more just through that kind of engagement, it's always a great feeling to have, you know, knowing that you're able to help people to understand themselves, their rights, and the opportunities available for them even more. I always love to see when young people are able to access jobs, because it gives them such an independence, it gives them such a willingness to further contribute to their country. And so I enjoy that type of engagement, getting young people, you know, the ability to access opportunities. So I would say those are two of the instances that really warm my heart and really remind me of why I continue to do this kind of work.
Muchas gracias, Gabriela. Sí, sí.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. Even though it's not a specific case, but it's many, the impact that it has of having access to employment and how this can change your life. Now, I wish to continue with Julieta. Julieta, from the work that you've done and what you've collaborated with, do you have a story that calls your attention most and moves you most of the work you've done that you could share with us? You know, Jessica, I wish to share of a very particular case that is occurring now. And I've started because from a small age, the word success has always called my attention, and I never liked it 100%. I imagined the competence, contest, or a struggle, even though if you may step on others, you win. And at this moment, redesigning the new world of successes has to do with collaborative work and a sense of responsibility and collaboration. And I want to also relate with this common subject that we have with each of the panelists that has to do with education and education of young girls as a subject. I did an academy where we had more than 600 girls join, 300 graduates, more than 600 tons of mitigated CO2 of collective work done by these girls. And at this moment, I'm not in Chile, I am in New York, because based on the work that these girls brought forth and also the follow-up of each of the projects brought forth and are being brought forth, we were able to directly connect with an organization called Your Rising, which is an international NGO that looks for connection between girls, education, and in the end, the whole sustainability agenda and gender agenda. And I am directing a documentary that we will prepare to present in each school of the world and to be presented in front of parliamentary men, Congress, all of civil society, government, public and private sectors, with the possibility of showing the story of one of the girls who is called Paz Quevedo, a 17-year-old girl who has been in a completely contaminated zone. This is a girl who grew up thinking that the clouds are created by industry, because she would get up and open the window and what's the first thing she saw? And it's a youth who wanted to see other crops than monocrops. This is a girl that in a context of destructive, massive destruction looks for hope, and hope through action, real concrete action that brings forth intergenerational work, but very multi-sectorial work. This is work that we wish to continue to bring forth and look for the opportunity of financial support, considering that financial support for this youth support is very scarce, and she was one of the ones possible, and it was made known that we are here, that we will hear them, not only hear them, but also there are solutions that are not only ambitious, but are effective.
Qué increíble, Julieta, todas estas acciones que nos comentas.
Incredible, Julieta, your actions, even the 8 tons of CO2 saved. I would love to see that documentary you're sending. I think the name was Paz Quevedo, right? Now we go with Claudia, so that Claudia, if you have a quick story, an example of the work you've done, and you've seen this impact in people's lives, please, if you may, Claudia. Well, I believe that each action done, each youth that feels empowered, that acquires skills and tools to make a difference in their area of interest, is a success case. And with the simple fact that maybe they acquire a knowledge that they did not have previous and are able to make an informed decision at the moment of elections, that they may lead a project at a local level in their community or create positive change, for me, is a success. This is simply seeing the initiatives that arise and are led by them. Maybe through my work and my area of my initiative, I've seen this. For me, it is that as youths, we are able to truly represent the unity that is needed in the world to achieve a difference, to point towards a more sustainable path and achieve sustainable economic recovery. I think we must support ourselves, and it's the great difference that we have maybe with the adults, and where differences are what are most important and limit the advances and the achievement of goals. And I would like to meet Julieta someday because it's been some time. And a small anecdote, I met one of these great people in conference, and we were talking about climate change, and she commented that it's a bit of a frustration where, well, we do this, but we do not see great changes and we are not heard. And there was great energy to do something. And well, I have been doing this for many years, I told her, and I know you feel that you are useless sometimes, but what's most important that we can see as you, this is you do not need to do a great explosion to have a significant impact. The small actions, small changes achieved in the people that we impact and the individuals that we change their life a bit and where we can help them change their lives to support more has a more impact, a major impact. The fact itself of having achieved synergy between my work as a public official, but also with initiatives and in interest that I have of seeing organized youths in my first national youth conference for climate change, and to give the space for them to be heard and give space to create a first declaration to make them known and to know each other and talk among themselves, as an example, to create a network of youths whom are interested in a common thing. These small empowerments achieve more significant changes of what we are sometimes capable of achieving, measuring, or even realizing, because sometimes we replicate this. Thank you very much, Claudia. And I think this is linked of what Bruno called before, which were small actions. And it's good that you were able to meet Julia. This is important because it's good that you meet each other. Let us continue, Bruno. Bruno, if you could share us some story or some example. Bruno, once again, you've had to tell us, please, where you're coming from. They're writing from us from Cameroon and Namibia. They're sending greetings and lots of love. Bruno.
So I have some stories. All of them are stories of wonderful women. And especially, it's important to say that the presence of women in this panel, I think it's important to mention. I think it's very important for the youth nowadays. So I will make an effort to make this panel full of women and Brazilian women to be also present here. So the two cases I would like to mention that are very important. The first one was about the first class of students in our course. It was a lady, she was 30 years old. She had a big dream to become a teacher, and she wanted to study history, and she needed to study for that, for the examinations. The exams here to get into the university is very hard. So she studied with us for a full year, always with this wish to become a teacher and be able to teach other people. At the end of the year, we lost contact. We didn't know what happened to her. I studied history. I am a historian. And at that time, I was still 17, 18 years old. So I was still at the university. And in the next year, I was in the university again in the beginning of the year. And when I was leaving my classroom, this woman was leaving another room. And I could say, what are you doing here? And she said, well, I passed. So it was very emotional. It was very special. She fulfilled her dream. So after that moment, since I was still at my undergraduate degree, we studied together many times. She was the person who founded inside the university, the Federal University of São Paulo, the State University of São Paulo, the Center for Parents. And these parents could go there and as mothers, as parents, they could help their children. So she was the member of the academic center for history. She could represent me in many ways. So it was very special for me too as well. And another recent case in 2017, it was also another student who studied with us, and she was able to study human resources, graduated as a recruitment professional, and she motivated her mother to study and to get into university. And her mother wanted to be a nutritionist, so her mother studied with us the following year. And when I saw her, I was like, I saw this lady somewhere, because they are very similar. And she said, well, I am this student's mother. And this mother was also able to get into the university, and she's studying nutrition. She'll become a nutritionist. So these little seeds that we are planting have the aim of a transformation harvest, a global transformation harvest. So we are acting locally in this to make global transformations, so that these people can access protagonist positions in our country, cities, streets. And we hope that these actions can reverberate. So it's important for us to have this in mind, to start making global actions or local actions that may seem small, but they are transforming generations in people's lives. And this will still be heard for many, many years.
Gracias, Bruno. Concretar sueños. Tú lo dijiste, gracias por este par de historias que nos compartiste. Y bueno, vamos
Thank you
a
for
hacer.
the stories you shared with us. And now we are going to be wrapping up this question round with Carolina. So Carolina, please. Okay, I'd like to share two brief stories with you. The first, Paraguay is an extremely water resource rich country. Water is one of our main resources, but as maybe all our other panelists as suffering the challenges for countries in the region. We are very rich in natural resources, and also there are so many threats and challenges implied by these resources and everything we are going through because of climate change. In 2013, 2014, in our country, we visibilized a problem which has been impacting an iconic lake in our country for a long time. This lake is practically a diary declared it to be dead, and it was a revolution in our country. I mean, this is a very known lake, which we all like. And in all of our network that has almost 1,500 youth per year as members, we generated this movement with what happened with our Wakarai Lake. And the young people from different parts of the country were saying, okay, we have to do something. We have to do something together. And we have to do this not only in the lake, but also everywhere we are living. This movement, this concern, this energy resulted in a process and a project that is still happening today. 9 years of work in these community schools, these community music schools, and which were empowered with this water course and environmental course. So there are 60 community schools that said, okay, what can we do? Well, music. What are we going to do then so we can contribute? So conditions improve and that other lakes don't have to go through the same our lake did, which is caused by decisions that were made. So in all communities in the Sounds of the Earth network, all music schools have an environmental cause, something they are working towards at the local level. And they are also taking care of these water courses that is either a lake, a river, a lagoon, and a basin even, being empowered with this story. Some young people, for example, were not even aware their parents brought water from God knows where. Well, it is about recovering this story, the why of this importance, and be able to protect them. And we are H2O, right? We are seeking to precisely create environmentally active communities. And just to bring a point, we are told all the time, or either boys, children, adolescents, we are always called as not part of the economically active population, as we are not always producing resources, but we are seeking to position the role of boys, girls, adolescents as an environmentally active population. For example, how much does it cost for a country that the water source is not polluted? How much does it cost, or how many investments are generated? For example, if public spaces are recovered and green areas are recovered that are maintained by communities. So how much out of a budget can be better invested when such a large population can be aware responsibly with their resources? So let's not say that we are not an economically active population. We are this environmentally active population, which is taking care of resources, and we are resources as well. And even if we give this a monetary value, it's an inconceivable figure. So this is a gathering environment which was able to overcome political, party, religious barriers and all these taboos and prejudices. These youth were able to bring members of their communities, adults, leaders, all of them to reach an agreement in our cause, a single cause, our environmental cause, and then we are all going to work together. We are not going to fight for anything else. We are going to focus on this point which we can all agree on. And this leads me to the next story in this dialogue platform where we are now in Paraguay, where we were able, as a young leader from different sectors, to, during the pandemic, bring visibility to topics, right, that were somewhat lost in the urgency of the pandemic, and that many issues and topics were overlooked. For example, collectives that were historically made invisible or excluded. So as a platform, Paraguay, it is about the generating instances where this dialogue could bring issues that were also urgent or necessary to the table, and even more so in the current pandemic context. For example, working health system reforms in all of our countries, the environment and the territory, and also capacity building for young people in our country was fundamental to discuss this and for this to be brought to the table. So we are working on creating an Paraguay agenda with issues and proposals where many different opinions and sectors are reflected, and be able to invite decision makers to sit together with us to talk about what the different decision makers are doing in this, and also how from this Agenda Paraguay we could contribute diversity, a broader outlook, and more visibility to other issues that were lost among the urgency of the pandemic. So these two experiences, I mean, we say dialogue and music changed the world, but these are pillars or diversity where inclusion, equality can be possible. Youth contribute exactly these to nation building. So it's fundamental for us to also be able to share these stories. Thank you so much, Carolina. I really liked what you say. Youth as active environmentalists. Okay, we're going to continue, but okay, I'm being notified that we'd like for us to send our regards to the UK, Tanzania, Iceland, Afghanistan, Honduras, Guyana, Chile, Ecuador, Peru, Argentina, Paraguay, Egypt, and Heidi. So thank you so much to all youth, and even though not all are so young, but thank you so much to all of you. Okay, we're going to continue. So I'd like to thank you for your responses. Please, okay, please try to be brief in your responses to also honor the time of everybody else. We're going to continue with the next question. How do you think the World Bank can contribute to the work youth in Latin America and the Caribbean are doing for building back better? And Julieta, I'd like to start with you, so please go ahead. Thank you so much, and this will be very brief and solid. I think today there are more and more instances than before, which is wonderful. A couple of years ago, this idea of having young people in these instances or panels, not only panels, but also decision-making instances was something unthinkable. And we are working on cross-sectional, intergenerational aspects. It is about time to move on to the next step, which is about most often we say if we'd like to make it so young people are really represented and engaged in these instances, they must have the tools they need to do so, because it's useless to be able to be at a conference, at a panel, to seek to contribute concrete interactions if I don't know how to do it in the first place, if we are not speaking the same language, if we don't have the same tools. And I think this is also a message towards the World Bank. Okay, which tools can you give us? We know that you are working based on sustainability, economic reactivation, and also implementing new measures, understanding that the world is changing today, and the public sector and the private sector, NGOs, all parts of the population have to change along with this. So it would be amazing to be able to generate these instances, to provide tools to show our youth that not only they can prove their employability, so they can also participate in this process and also understand the main needs we have to address in order to finally, not for it not to be purely symbolic. No, we want this participation to be active and effective. Thank you so much, Julieta, and I'd like to thank you for joining us in this panel. I know you have to leave for another meeting, so thank you so much. I'm not sure if you'd like to say something at the end before saying goodbye. Don't forget about the importance of connecting all of us, all the steps of the way. It's a pleasure to meet you and have a great event. Okay, thank you, Julieta. You have a good day too. Thank you for joining us. We are going to continue with Claudia. Claudia, if you can also share your opinion about what the World Bank can contribute to our youth in the region. Okay, so I think first, the international community and entities such as the World Bank have to start seeing young people, not only as a definition of agents of change or business people, innovators, because it is them through significant action, education, science, technology, and innovation are accelerating these effective measures to address the main challenges humanity is facing. Even now, the perspective of our young people is more needed than ever. It was proven, right, with this COVID pandemic and the continuous climate crisis, that the status quo and the business as usual is no longer an option for us. So now, more than ever, it's necessary to be able to address these important challenges, these global challenges such as climate change, in order to be able to indeed achieve this economic sustainable recovery. In Latin America and the Caribbean, we're in the more unequal region of the world, some challenges which are completely impairing youth development, and we are constantly hearing from our leaders, our local international leaders, that young people are a priority, but youth are usually the less prioritized sector of society. And very rarely we find instances for a significant participation of our youth. Funding, for example, for the participation of our youth is never included. And there is an evident lack of this trust in our youth from decision makers. And also regarding financing, they are facing many different obstacles and conditions that make it more difficult for them to engage. And people have to work on the benefit of our youth, of course, but also must have our youth as a strategic partner and must have a young leadership. What we have to achieve, we have to make it so youth participation is an intentional and inclusive alliance between governments, companies, and youth, young people. Because and only by means of this intergenerational dialogue, which is based on respect that allows for this inclusion, we are going to be able to move forward towards a sustainable world. And now is the time to recognize that youth are the most valuable asset we have in order to be able to address these topics. Sorry. Okay, Claudia's back. Okay, yes, we have you back with us, Claudia. Okay, okay. Now is the time for us to recognize that our youth is our most valuable asset for this national, local, international, and regional development. Financial mechanisms do play a really important role to perform for making it so the capacities of our youth can indeed have an impact by means of these resource allocations for youth-led initiatives. Thank you so much, Claudia. Now, Carolina. Please, Carolina, the floor is all yours. Yes, I think Claudia summarized everything I wanted to say really well, this contribution which is required from multi-sectional, national, international entities. And it's about these ideas being able to generate conditions, right? Now, it is now time to invest in better conditions. There is no possible future without investing in better conditions, more fairer conditions and in our youth. In this sense, our youth can really contribute so much diversity, so much energy, and so much strength in their ideas and actions, which are already becoming a reality in the various countries in the region. So the World Bank has to continue investing in sustaining and preserving processes and actions, adding visibility to what is already being done and connecting all the different parties. This is fundamental so this change can be generated and felt. Thank you so much, Carolina. Now, Gabriela, the floor is all yours, please.
Jessica, I think one of the greatest contributions the World Bank can make to Jamaica is really assistance with advocacy and also with research. As a lawmaker, it's important that we have sufficient data to go off when we're making decisions, on behalf of people. And I think the World Bank has been doing some amount of that in Jamaica. I know that just last year, there was an education study that was done, and that helped us to critically analyze some of the deficits here in our education system. And it helped us to, devise ways and plans of moving forward. So data creation, data generation is something that I think the World Bank can really help us to push more for, so that we can have data-driven plans being put in place for development. Another thing that I think the World Bank is pivotal to doing here in Jamaica and across the wider Caribbean is assistance with advocacy and inclusion. We struggle at times with inclusion, especially of vulnerable groups, women, young people, as Claudia said, and the LGBTQ plus community. And that's something that we have to begin to challenge here in Jamaica. And I think the World Bank can help us to create spaces and give voice to these groups of people so that we can have them being included, have them being a part of the decision-making process so we can create more equitable societies. And finally, I want to say that it would be imperative that we engage the World Bank here in Jamaica on providing more opportunities, especially for young people. And when I say opportunities, I speak specifically to mentorship opportunities. I speak specifically to educational opportunities. And as we move forward, these two areas are going to be critical for us as young people to really challenge. And so I would love to see some more emphasis and partnership from the World Bank in these critical areas, because for young people to move forward, they need the tools and they need the support, they need the resources to actually help them to chart their journey. And so as young people here in Jamaica, we're looking forward to that kind of emphasis, especially on education and job creation and mentorship.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Gabriela, for your words and your mentioning this. And I'd like to say that now there is indeed an open program for internships. You can check it in our social media, World Bank Caribbean or LAC World Bank. Okay, Bruno, now we are going to be wrapping up this part with you. How do you think the World Bank can contribute for all these different instances of young people like you? Please go ahead.
Well, that's a question that I think it's very interesting for us to make in an event, a World Bank event, because in fact, if that reflects the problems that we have been going through, especially in the south part of South America, because we have to solve these problems in structural ways. So we have an economic system that is very aggressive and that many times we don't have, for example, youth, Brazilian youth don't know and have no idea what is the World Bank's job. And what is the World Bank and what does the World Bank do? So do they have like a credit card? Do they give loans? It's like a regular bank. So I believe that the World Bank is still in a very elitist sphere. And the basis, the basis of the pyramid haven't been able to know the potency of the World Bank and what the impact that the World Bank can cause in a country and in a reality. So I believe that in this moment, the first part for me is to promote, which we have been doing in these meetings throughout the years with youth. I think this is the first door for us to start accessing the bank and get this reality, show this reality where it's needed. Because in fact, the problems that we have been going through many times, they go opposite to the existence of a bank, the problems that we face. So we have to understand in a smart way, emotional way, and structural way, and especially financial way, how the World Bank can contribute to youth projects in different countries in the Latin America. And as Claudia pointed out, and Carolina Gabriela as well, we have to invest in the projects that the youth are leading and that they are protagonists. They will be directly affected by these resources. So before thinking about anything else, people need to drink, to eat, they need a roof under to live in. So we can't just, we have been able to discuss these things here at this moment because we had lunch, we have internet, we have a computer. And what about the people who are outside? So we have to include these people. So I think that not only the bank, but everyone who is here today, we need to give opportunity. And I don't say privilege because I think that it shouldn't be a privilege. It should be a right for people to access this type of event because we need the conscience that we are here. It's my job to bring this content to these people. So this movement needs to happen constantly in organizations like the World Bank. So for that to happen, we need to be there. We are here now talking. So I think that we need this process of making the best out of these opportunities and talk about them all the time because youth are coming up. They are rising up and they have the will to win and to change the world. And we have to give these young people the opportunity. Otherwise, they will be erased. They will be crushed by the machine, the world machine.
Thank you, Bruno. We are closing out our panel and we will ask to close. Please stick on a phrase. What is your best dream, your best ambition to create the best Latin American Caribbean? Please, Claudia, start first. Well, for me, let us continue to work simply just to tell young people that the path is long. To generate change is a lifelong commitment. When you assume these commitments and you have true vocation, it is something that will stick for your whole life as you're young. And if you don't file into the range that is not considered you. And this is a little bit what brought us to close this inequality gap that we have in our region. It is a moment of unity. It is a moment for empowering our region, specifically facing the impacts that we see, facing other countries of conflicts and climate change. It is an instance where we have to continue to grow, work together to change. Today, it has been most difficult to advance, to continue towards walking the path for those behind us, have it a bit easier, and can even achieve more successes. Thank you, Claudia. Gabriela, please, if you may.
My highest vision for the Caribbean and Latin America regarding youth would really to be a region where young people know that they have impact, where young people know that they can contribute to change in the region, and where young people feel as if they have access and opportunity. And I just want to say that we all, as well as the other young people in our networks, we all can be a part of that change. Whatever is wrong with our region can be made right with us, making the change and doing the necessary work to make it happen. And Claudia said it won't happen all in one go. Big ships turn very slowly. So we have to continue to do the work. We have to continue to encourage others. And we have to continue to make it a part of our mandate to ensure that all young people continue to have access and opportunity.
Gracias, Gabriela. Ahora continuamos.
Thank you, Gabriela. We continue with Bruno.
I believe that the last message that we have to get across is that of hope, but also to have in our hearts that feeling of fighting, of advocating, because things are not gonna happen in a smooth way. Good things, they happen after a lot of advocating and sometimes pain, and we have to fight. We are going through this not only in Brazil, but Latin America. So here in Brazil, for example, we have the news related to the shooting that happened in Texas. I think this is worldwide. It's a terrible situation for the youth. And it's a situation that it has been feeding by a gun control, lack of control of guns policy. Here in Brazil, we had this police operation that 22 people died. So this is not a police operation, it's murder. So we need to give these young people opportunities to simply live their freedom. Nina Simone said that it's to not be afraid, to feel freedom when you are on the stage. So it's not being afraid and be able to live fully. And I think that we have been able to have this opportunity to fight for this, and we cannot let this die. So that we have to use this day, this youth summit, to keep fighting and advocating so we can be pressed towards having faith and hope that it's possible, because our reality shows that it's not. Every day they test us, they test our faith, and sometimes we don't believe in our work, but we have to keep believing. So as people who are having access to this material, including young people, we have to keep maintaining this feeling inside us.
Muchas gracias, Carolina. Cerramos contigo. Adelante, por favor.
We continue with Carolina, where my highest ambition for youth in Latin America, Caribbean, and the world in general is that the future is not an expression of desire, that shouldn't be just an imaginary or a wish or an intent to reach there. The future should be a reality and should be felt in the present. As young people, we can feel in the present that this future is truly possible. We will continue to support and build and do things. And this is felt in small actions, in small steps, in the following steps to be made, in the following decisions that have to be made. Thus, to create these conditions so that that future is not just a simple expression of desire, but a word that is not intended to use, but it to be something that brings us together, that concerns us. The future should concern us, has to mobilize us, has to bring us out of our seats. The future has to continue being has to continue make our heart beat strongly. And we has to invite us forward with music and dialogue and teachings, and for the university with laws in parliament, with youth reaching spaces and positions of power. This is the future for all people whom are on the panel and have been present. These have been as signals. We need these as signals, and signs are seen by doing. Doing and making, I think, is the invitation that we have in our largest challenge. And our region needs an imperative. It's not even an option. We have to do so. Our region can be energy, a reference for others. And we are historically living with many, many stories seen in our region. So this is simply this, as a wish and conviction specifically. Thank you very much, Carolina, Bruno, Gabriela, Claudia, and Julieta. She had to leave. We thank everyone for their participation. The future is now. Time for youth action. Thank you everyone for joining us. We thank George Sumir from the Global Bank and also the production, Maria Victoria Rosana Luca and Yaroslav Brecha. Thank you very much. I am Jessica, communicator from the World Bank, and you know, hashtag Futuro es ahora. And you could see transmission of the event. Thank you very much. Goodbye.